He's gone! There's nothing you can do.
No, he's still fighting!
The air is dead. The scream ripped through the emergency wing just as the backup generators failed for the second time that night. Darkness swallowed the hallway. Then came the sound of gunfire outside. Nurses ducked behind counters. Doctors froze. Someone started crying near the operating room doors. But the woman standing over Kang Min-yi's lifeless body didn't move. Not even when the heart monitor flattened into one long, merciless tone. "Step away from him," a senior surgeon shouted. "There's nothing else we can do." The black nurse ignored him. Her gloved fingers pressed harder against the blood soaking through the Mafia heir's chest while security guards yelled into radios that no longer worked. Outside, Seoul was drowning in rain. Inside, one of the most feared names in Korea had just died. And everyone knew what came next. War. Subscribe to the channel to follow this story to the end. "You heard me," the surgeon barked again. "He's gone." The nurse slowly raised her eyes, calm, cold, unshaken. She said quietly, "He's not." Down the corridor, heavy footsteps thundered closer, men in black suits, armed. The atmosphere changed instantly. Every doctor in the room stiffened. One of the younger nurses whispered with pale lips, "The Chin family." Fear spread faster than the storm outside. Because everyone in Seoul knew the Chin Mafia syndicate only had one heir, Kang Min-yi. And if he died tonight, blood would flood the city by morning. The operating room doors burst open. A tall man entered first. Silver rings, black gloves, rain dripping from his coat. The room fell silent immediately. Chin Di-ho, the head of the organization, Min-yi's father, even the surgeons lowered their eyes. But the older man didn't look at them. His gaze locked directly onto the body on the table, then onto the black nurse still pressing against his son's wound. "Who are you?" he asked. She answered without hesitation. "Naomi Cole." Not Korean. That alone made the tension worse. One of the doctors immediately stepped forward nervously. "Chairman Chin, we did everything possible. The bullet damage was severe. He lost too much blood." Silence. The words sliced through the room. The doctor instantly shut up. Di-ho stepped closer to the table. For a moment his face showed nothing. Then his hand touched his son's cold forehead. The room held its breath. "What time did his heart stop?" he asked quietly. 3 minutes ago," someone answered. Naomi suddenly spoke. "I need the room cleared." Every head turned toward her. Even Di-ho looked surprised. "You what?" the surgeon snapped. "I said clear the room." "That's impossible. You already gave up on him," Naomi replied calmly. "So either let me try or prepare his funeral." Gasps spread around the room. Nobody spoke to the Chin family like that. Nobody. One guard even reached for his gun. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was Min-yi's father slowly turning toward her with interest instead of anger. "You think you can save him?" he asked. Naomi met his eyes directly. "I know I can't." Rain hammered against the windows. Then Di-ho asked the question nobody expected. "What do you need?" The surgeons erupted immediately. "Chairman, this is insanity. She's a nurse, not a trauma specialist. We can't allow this." Di-ho raised one finger. The room died silent again. Naomi finally spoke. "Lock the doors." The surgeon stared at her. "What?" "No interruptions. No one enters until I open them myself." "If he dies," Naomi's expression never changed. "Then he dies." The old Mafia boss studied her face carefully like he was searching for something, then slowly he nodded. The surgeon nearly shouted. Steel doors slammed shut moments later, locks clicked into place. And suddenly Naomi Cole was alone with the most dangerous patient in Korea, dead or almost dead. She moved instantly, no panic, no hesitation. Her fingers ripped open Min-yi, ruined shirt further, exposing the deep bullet wound beneath his ribs. Blood everywhere, too much blood, yet her breathing stayed steady. "You don't get to die tonight," she murmured. Lightning flashed outside. For the first time, the audience could finally see him clearly. Even unconscious, Kang Min-yi looked dangerous, sharp jawline, broad shoulders, tattoo ink disappearing beneath blood-stained skin. A face too calm for a man standing at death's door. Naomi grabbed a syringe. Injected something directly into his chest. Nothing. The monitor stayed flat. She didn't react. Another injection, then another, still nothing. Outside the room, tension exploded. One of the guards paced aggressively. "Chairman, we should stop this." Muttered, "This is disrespectful." The surgeon wiped sweat from his forehead. "She's wasting time." Di-ho remained still near the glass, watching, waiting, like he knew something they didn't. Inside, Naomi leaned closer to Min-yi's body. Listen to me, she whispered. I know you can hear me. I didn't come all the way to Seoul for you to quit now. Still nothing. Then she said softly, I know what they did to your mother. The heart monitor twitched outside, the surgeons froze, one beep, then silence again, but Naomi saw it, a reaction. There you are, she whispered. She pressed harder against the wound, blood coated her hands now, her voice lowered further. You stayed alive this long out of anger, not strength. Faint beep. Good, she murmured. Stay angry. Sighed. Deho's expression changed for the first time slightly, barely noticeable. But it was their shock, because there was no public information about Minyi's mother, none. The woman had supposedly died years ago. Yet somehow this foreign nurse knew enough to reach the air even unconscious. What is she doing? One guard whispered nervously, but nobody had the answer. Inside the room, Naomi suddenly grabbed the defibrillator paddles. Come back, she said quietly, charge clear. Minyi's body jolted violently, nothing. Again, charge clear, another violent shock. The monitor flickered, then flatlined again. Naomi stared at the screen for 2 seconds, 3. Then suddenly she slammed the paddles down and shouted, Kang Minyi. The monitor exploded with sound. Beep, the entire hallway froze. Another beep, then another. The surgeons looked horrified. One guard actually crossed himself. Because the impossible had just happened. The air was alive. The operating room doors slowly opened. Naomi stepped out first, covered in blood, exhausted, silent. Behind her, doctors rushed inside frantically. Then chaos erupted. He has a pulse. Get more plasma now. Move. But nobody noticed them because every eye was locked onto Naomi, especially Deho's. He approached her slowly, dangerously calm. You saved my son, he said. Naomi removed her gloves carefully. She replied. I gave him a chance. Deho studied her face again, longer this time. Then he asked quietly, how did you know about his mother? The hallway went still. Even the guards looked tense now. Naomi held his gaze. I used to work for someone who knew her. Who? But Naomi didn't answer immediately. And that silence alone made the older man's eyes darken, because now he understood something terrifying. This wasn't coincidence. This woman had come here for a reason. Before he could press further, the operating room doors burst open again. A doctor rushed out breathlessly. Chairman, he's awake. Every guard immediately reached for weapons, because Kang Minyi waking up this quickly was unnatural. Dangerous, even. Deho turned instantly and entered the room. Naomi followed behind him. And the moment she stepped inside, Minyi's eyes locked onto hers, cold black eyes, sharp, alert, predatory, like death itself had opened its eyes. Machines beeped wildly around him as doctors tried keeping distance. Even injured, his presence controlled the room. Then he spoke, one sentence, directly to Naomi. I know you. The room froze again. Naomi's expression finally shifted slightly, not fear, recognition. Minyi slowly tried sitting up despite the pain. A doctor panicked. Don't move. Minyi ignored him completely. His eyes never left Naomi. I saw you before, he said hoarsely. Naomi stepped closer slowly. That's impossible. No, he whispered. I remember your face. That wasn't the shocking part. What shocked everyone was what happened next. Minyi lifted his trembling hand toward her, and Naomi instinctively grabbed it before he even touched her. The contact silenced the entire room. Because Kang Minyi hated being touched, everyone knew that. Even his own guards avoided physical contact unless ordered. Yet now the feared Mafia heir was staring at this unknown woman like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to reality. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, I knew the moment I saw you. Naomi's breathing caught slightly. You were the one who came back for me. The room stayed frozen long after Minyi spoke. Even the machine seemed quieter. Naomi slowly released his hand, but Minyi's fingers tightened weakly around hers before she could pull away completely. Boss, one of the guards said carefully, you need rest. Minyi never looked at him. Get out. The guard hesitated. That was a mistake. Minyi turned his head slightly, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop instantly. I said, he repeated softly, get out. Nobody argued after that. Doctors hurried away first, then the guards. Even Chairman Chen stepped back toward the door, though not before giving Naomi one long, unreadable look. The moment the doors shut, silence wrapped around the room again. Rain still battered the windows outside. Minyi finally released her hand. You shouldn't have saved me, he said. Naomi adjusted the IV line calmly. That's usually the fever talking. Serious. So am I. His eyes narrowed slightly. She noticed immediately how dangerous he looked, even lying half dead in a hospital bed. Not loud danger, controlled danger. The kind that didn't need shouting. Men like him weren't trained to survive, they were trained to destroy. Yet right now, beneath the coldness, she saw something else. Exhaustion, deep exhaustion. What exactly are you? He asked quietly. Naomi almost smiled. A nurse. No, his voice sharpened slightly. Not just that. She ignored the question and checked the monitor again. You lost a lot of blood. You dodged my question. You survived surgery. Focus on that. Minyi watched her carefully, too carefully, like he was trying to peel layers off her without touching her. Then suddenly, how do you know about my mother? There it was, the real question. Naomi finally looked at him directly. She saved my life once. For the first time since waking up, Minyi looked genuinely surprised. That's impossible. She worked at St. Maria Clinic in Busan before she disappeared. His entire body went still, because almost nobody knew that, not even members of the Chin organization. Naomi continued quietly. I was 13. My mother cleaned rooms there. Minyi stared at her without blinking now. She used to bring me food when my mother worked night shifts, Naomi said. She always wore white gloves. A flicker crossed his face, memory, pain. She told me something before she vanished. Minyi's voice dropped lower. What? Naomi hesitated. And that hesitation changed the entire atmosphere. Because suddenly Minyi wasn't just curious anymore, he was tense. What did she say? He repeated. Naomi stepped back slightly. She said if anything ever happened to her son, her eyes locked onto his. I should never trust the people around him. Silence. A dangerous silence. Then unexpectedly, Minyi laughed once, dry, cold, not amused. She was right. The lights flickered again overhead. Naomi noticed his breathing changing, slightly pain. Internal bleeding maybe, but he refused to show weakness, typical Mafia prince. You need sleep, she said. You need answers. You almost died. You came prepared. Her silence confirmed it. Minyi leaned his head back against the pillow slowly. You knew I'd be here tonight. Bullet wasn't random. I know. Naomi's eyes sharpened slightly. You know who shot you. His jaw tightened. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was the faint smile that suddenly appeared on his face. I knew before he pulled the trigger. Her stomach tight. Why didn't you stop it? Minyi looked toward the rain outside. Because I wanted to see who would panic first after I died. Stared at him, this man, he let himself get shot. You're insane, probably. Then his expression darkened slightly. Now I know. What? Who betrayed me? Naomi could respond. The hospital doors downstairs exploded open. Screams echoed through the building. Gunshots followed instantly. Minyi didn't even flinch, but Naomi spun toward the door immediately. The Mafia heir watched her reaction closely. Interesting. Most people froze during violence. Naomi moved toward it. A guard burst into the room seconds later. Boss, he shouted breathlessly. The Black Vipers are inside the building. Naomi's eyes narrowed. The rival syndicate. Minyi slowly pulled the IV from his arm. The guard panicked instantly. Boss, no, give me my coat. You can barely stand. I said, Minyi replied calmly, give me my coat. The guard obeyed immediately. Naomi watched in disbelief as Minyi swung his legs off the bed despite fresh stitches and blood loss. What are you doing? She demanded, ending the problem. In no condition to fight. Looked at her once while buttoning his black shirt slowly over the bandages. And yet they came anyway. Gunshot echoed downstairs, closer this time. Naomi moved toward the door instinctively, but Minyi suddenly grabbed her wrist, strong, even injured, terrifyingly strong. Stay behind me, he said quietly. Naomi frowned immediately. I don't need protection. You do tonight. I've survived worse. Something about those words made him pause. For half a second their eyes held. Then boom, the hallway outside erupted. Screaming nurses ran past the room. A body slammed against the glass doors. Blood smeared down the window. Naomi's heartbeat spiked, but her face stayed controlled. Minyi noticed that too. Interesting again. Very interesting. Most civilians broke under this kind of pressure. But Naomi looked almost familiar with chaos. What exactly happened to you in Busan? He asked softly. Naomi didn't answer. The doors burst open. 3 armed men rushed inside. Black Viper tattoos, masks, weapons raised. Everything happened at once. The first gunman aimed directly at Minyi. Naomi reacted before anyone else. She grabbed a metal tray and hurled it hard across the room. Cracked. The tray smashed into the shooter's wrist. Gunfire exploded into the ceiling instead. Minyi moved instantly. Despite the injury, he crossed the room like a predator unleashed. One brutal punch dropped the first attacker immediately. The second lunged forward. Minyi disarmed him so fast it barely looked human. Then came the third attacker. Gun aimed directly at Naomi. Time slowed. The gunman smirked beneath his mask. Found you. Froze, not from fear, recognition. Minyi saw it instantly. The attacker fired. But Minyi stepped in front of her without hesitation. Bang, the bullet tore into his shoulder. Naomi caught him before he fell completely. Everything stopped. The gunman looked shocked. It's true, he whispered. Minyi's voice came out deadly calm despite the blood spreading again through his shirt. You talk too much. Then he pulled the trigger himself. The attacker dropped instantly. Silence filled the room again except for Naomi's breathing, fast now, uneven. Minyi looked down at her hands, gripping him tightly. You're shaking. I'm angry. That almost made him smile again, almost. Then his knees weakened suddenly. Naomi caught his weight fully this time. Idiot, she muttered. You reopened your stitches. Minyi's face paled slightly from blood loss, yet his eyes remained fixed on hers. He called your name. Naomi said nothing. He knew you. Still silence. Outside, footsteps thundered closer again, more guards, more chaos. But inside that room, something invisible shifted between them. Trust. Dangerous trust. Minyi lowered his voice. Who are you running from, Naomi? She looked away for the first time since meeting him. And that alone answered the question. Someone dangerous, someone powerful. Then quietly, almost to herself, she said, I was supposed to be dead too. Naomi's words hung in the air like smoke after gunfire. Minyi studied her face carefully despite the pain ripping through his shoulder. You say things like that too calmly, he muttered. That's because panic never saved anybody. Continued dripping down his arm, Naomi immediately pushed him back toward the bed. Sit down. Fine. You were shot twice in one night. I've had worse. You keep saying things that explain why your personality is terrible. That earned her a look, a real one this time. Sharp eyes narrowing slightly as though he couldn't decide whether she was reckless or insane. Maybe both. Outside the room, chaos still echoed through the hospital corridors. Men shouting, running footsteps, distant gunfire. But inside this room, the tension had changed. Something quieter now, more dangerous. Naomi tore open a fresh medical kit and pressed gauze against his shoulder wound. Minyi didn't even react. No flinch. No sound. Just those cold eyes watching her every movement. You hide pain too well, she said quietly, and you notice too much. That's my job. No, he murmured. It's not. Naomi ignored that. Her fingers worked carefully against his skin, cleaning blood from the tattoo stretching across his collarbone, a black serpent, beautiful, violent. She noticed old scars too, knife wounds, bullet marks, burned scars, a body built from survival instead of peace. He asked suddenly. Naomi realized she'd been starring. Nothing. You looked sad. I looked tired. You looked sad. The softness in his voice surprised even him. And apparently it surprised Naomi too, because her hands paused for half a second. Then the hospital lights went out completely. Darkness swallowed everything. A nurse screamed somewhere downstairs. Immediately, Minyi reached for the gun beside him. Pure instinct. Naomi grabbed a flashlight quickly, but before she could switch it on, the door creaked open slowly. Both of them froze. A silhouette stood there, tall, still, watching. Minyi raised the gun instantly. Move, he said coldly, and you die. The figure stepped forward into the weak emergency lighting. Chairman Chen. The old man's gaze moved from the dead attackers on the floor to Naomi's bloodstained hands on his son's shoulder. Neither of them realized how intimate they looked until that moment. Diho noticed immediately. Interesting. Everyone else is secured, the chairman said calmly. The attack failed. Minyi lowered the gun slightly. Any survivors? One. Bring him to me later. Diho nodded once. Then his attention returned to Naomi, long, quiet, evaluating. You fought back, he observed. Naomi continued, wrapping Minyi's shoulder. I dislike getting shot at. One of the guards behind Diho suddenly spoke angrily. Chairman, this woman is suspicious. The attackers recognized her. Naomi's expression didn't change, but Minyi did dangerously. The guard noticed too late. Minyi's voice dropped low enough to freeze blood. Repeat that accusation carefully. The guard stiffened instantly. I only meant. I heard what you meant. Nobody moved. Even wounded, Minyi's authority crushed the room effortlessly. The guard lowered his head immediately. My apologies, boss. Chairman Chen kept watching Naomi. She has enemies, the old man said quietly. Naomi met his eyes directly. So does your son. That isn't an answer. No, she replied calmly. It's perspective. One of the older guards muttered under his breath, arrogant woman. Naomi heard him, so did Minyi. But before anyone could react, Minyi suddenly winced sharply, blood soaked through the fresh bandage again. Naomi cursed softly under her breath. You need proper surgery this time. I already had surgery. You also walked into a gunfight immediately after. Diho stepped closer finally. Will he survive? Naomi looked at Minyi first before answering. The chairman watched her carefully. You sound certain. I am. Why? Naomi tied off the bandage tightly. Because stubborn men like him usually outlive everyone else. Everyone surprised, Diho laughed. A low, rough laugh. The guards looked shocked. Nobody heard the chairman laugh anymore, not after his wife disappeared. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was Minyi quietly watching Naomi like he'd forgotten everyone else existed. Then suddenly his phone buzzed. One of the guards handed it to him nervously. Minyi glanced at the screen. His entire expression changed. Cold became lethal. What happened? Diho asked. Minyi stood slowly despite Naomi glaring at him again. The warehouse in Incheon burned down. A guard cursed quietly. Another asked, Are men dead? The room darkened emotionally. Naomi could feel it immediately. This wasn't ordinary organized crime. This was war spreading fast. Minyi slipped his coat on carefully over the bandages. Naomi frowned. You're not leaving. I am. You can barely breathe properly. I've had worse. You keep repeating that like it's impressive. It keeps being true. Step directly in front of him this time, close enough to feel his body heat, close enough to notice exhaustion hidden beneath the steel in his eyes. If you leave this hospital right now, she said quietly, your stitches will tear again. Minyi looked down at her. So you could die. For one strange second, neither moved. The air shifted again, heavy, electric. Then Minyi spoke softly. You sound worried. Naomi's jaw tightened slightly. I hate losing patients. Not your patient. The words came out quieter than expected, more personal. Naomi looked away first. That alone affected him more than it should have. Then Chairman Chen suddenly interrupted. She's coming with us. Both Naomi and Minyi turned toward him. Naomi frowned instantly. Excuse me, Diho remained calm. The attackers knew your face. If you stay here alone, you'll be dead before sunrise. I can protect myself. I believe that, he said. But I still don't trust coincidence. Minyi watched Naomi carefully. You don't have anywhere safer to go tonight, he said. Naomi hated that he was probably right. She crossed her arms. And going with a Mafia family is somehow safer. Yes, Minyi answered immediately. The terrifying part, he meant it. Minutes later, the hospital parking structure echoed with engines and rain. Black luxury vehicles lined the underground exit, armed guards everywhere. Naomi stepped beside Minyi as another wave of dizziness hit him briefly. She caught his arm instinctively, again. That same strange silence passed between them. Then one guard opened the car door respectfully. Minyi paused before entering. You're still bleeding, Naomi muttered. You're still starring. Assessing damage. Sounds romantic. Naomi blinked once, then narrowed her eyes immediately. You nearly died and suddenly developed jokes. A faint smirk touched his lips, tiny, gone almost instantly, but she saw it. And somehow that unsettled her more than his coldness. The convoy pulled out into the storm. Seoul blurred through rain-covered windows. For several minutes nobody spoke. Naomi sat across from Minyi inside the armored vehicle while guards drove ahead and behind them. The silence should have been uncomfortable. Instead, it felt loaded, like both of them were waiting for the other to reveal something dangerous first. Finally, Minyi broke it. The man who pointed the gun at you, he said quietly. Who was he? Naomi stared out the window. A mistake. I survived. That's not an answer either. You ask too many questions. You avoid too many. Their eyes met again. Then suddenly the convoy stopped hard. Guards shouted outside instantly. Weapons clicked. Minyi's hand moved for his gun immediately. Naomi's pulse sharpened. What now? She asked. One guard's voice came through the radio urgently. Boss, there's a child standing in the middle of the road. Silence. Rain hammered the roof. Minyi frowned slightly. A child? The guard sounded shaken now. She won't move. Naomi immediately opened the car door despite the guards protesting. Rain soaked her instantly. Headlights illuminated the small figure standing barefoot in the street ahead. A little Korean girl, maybe 7 years old, wearing hospital pajamas, and holding something tightly against her chest. Naomi approached carefully. She said softly, Are you hurt? The little girl slowly looked up. Her cheeks were stained with tears. Then she whispered something that made Naomi's blood turn cold. He told me to give this to the man who came back from the dead. Froze. Behind her, Minyi stepped out into the rain too. The little girl held out a small silver pendant. Minyi's entire body went still the second he saw it, because it belonged to his mother. Rain poured harder as the pendant swung gently from the little girl's fingers. For the first time that night, Kang Minyi looked shaken. Not angry, not cold, shaken. Naomi saw it immediately. The silver pendant was small, crescent-shaped, with a tiny emerald embedded at the center. Old, expensive, familiar, too familiar. Minyi stepped closer slowly. "Where did you get that?" he asked. The little girl flinched at his voice, not because he shouted, because power like his frightened people naturally. Naomi crouched beside her first. "Gentler, what's your name?" she asked softly. "Yuna." "Okay, Yuna, who gave this to you?" The child looked between them nervously. "A man in black." Of the guards immediately muttered, "Trap." Minyi ignored him completely. "What man?" Naomi asked. "He came to the hospital." Yuna swallowed hard. "He said if the scary man survived, I should wait in the road and give him this." And Minyi exchanged a look. The hospital, that meant someone had watched everything. Someone who knew Minyi lived before the public did. Dangerous, very dangerous. "What did he look like?" Minyi asked quietly. The girl shook her head. "I don't know." Then her tiny voice trembled. "He knew my mommy was sick." Naomi's expression changed immediately. "How?" "He paid for her surgery." Silence. Even the guards looked confused now. The little girl continued shakily. "He said I had to do one thing for him first." Naomi's stomach tightened. Manipulating a child. Whoever this man was, he understood fear perfectly. Minyi took the pendant carefully from Yuna's hand. The second his skin touched it, something dark flickered across his face. Memory, pain. Naomi noticed his fingers tighten around the silver. "You recognize it," she said softly. "It belonged to my mother." The rain suddenly felt colder. One of the guards stepped forward carefully. "Boss, your mother's belongings were buried years ago." "I know." Minyi's voice had gone flat now. Emotionless in the most dangerous way possible, Naomi stood slowly beside him. "You think someone took it from her?" "No." His eyes darkened slightly. "I think someone kept it." That changed everything, because if someone had access to his mother after her disappearance, then maybe she hadn't died the way everyone believed. The thought hit Naomi hard too. Minyi looked at Yuna again. "Where's your mother?" The girl pointed weakly toward a nearby clinic building across the street. "She's upstairs." Naomi immediately moved. "I'm checking on her." One guard blocked her path instantly. "Absolutely not." Naomi glared at him. "Move. It could be another setup." Minyi suddenly spoke. "Her go." Guard hesitated before stepping aside immediately. Naomi crossed the street quickly through the rain toward the dimly lit clinic building. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was Minyi following her despite the fresh blood soaking through his bandages again. The clinic was nearly empty. Only one floor still had lights on. Naomi climbed the stairs fast with Minyi close behind her while guards spread through the building checking rooms. Something felt wrong, too quiet. Yuna pointed toward the final room at the end of the hall. "That's my mommy's room." Naomi entered first, then froze. The hospital bed was empty, IV ripped out, blankets stained with blood, the window open, rain blowing inside. "She's gone," Naomi whispered. Yuna's face crumpled instantly. "Mommy!" One of the guards moved to the window quickly. "There's blood on the fire escape." He stepped closer slowly. His eyes scanned the room once, twice, then stopped. A message had been written on the mirror in blood. "Welcome back, young master." The room turned ice cold. Even the guards looked disturbed now. Naomi felt Yuna clutching tightly onto her arm. "What is this?" The little girl whispered fearfully. Minyi stared at the message without blinking. Then quietly, "Everyone out." The guards immediately obeyed. Even Naomi started leading Yuna away before Minyi suddenly spoke again. "Not you." She stopped. The door shut behind the others. Now only the three of them remained. Rain hissed against the windows. Naomi looked at the bloody writing again. "You know who did this?" Minyi didn't answer immediately. His jaw tightened slightly. Then, "No," he said. "But I know who used to write like this." Naomi waited. Minyi's eyes stayed on the mirror. "Mother." That sent chills through the room. Yuna buried her face into Naomi's side nervously. Naomi held her gently while watching Minyi carefully. Cold Mafia air suddenly looked less untouchable, less invincible, like old ghosts had finally found him again. "She disappeared 15 years ago," he said quietly. "The official story said she died in a fire." "But you never believed it," Naomi said. "No," his voice was certain, absolute. Naomi glanced at the pendant in his hand. He finally looked at her. "Because she promised me she'd come back." Silence. Something about the way he said it hurt more than Naomi expected. Not childish hope, not denial. Just quiet pain that had lived too long. Then Yuna suddenly whispered. The man said something else too. Both adults turned toward her immediately. What did he say? Naomi asked softly. Yuna swallowed nervously, he said. Her eyes moved to Minyi. The woman beside you is the reason your mother disappeared. Stop, the air, the movement, even Minyi's breathing seemed to pause. Naomi stared at the child in shock. What? I'm sorry, Yuna whispered tearfully. That's just what he told me to say. One of the lights overhead flickered violently. Minyi's eyes slowly moved toward Naomi, not accusing, worse thinking. Naomi stepped back slightly. You can't seriously believe that. I didn't say I did, but you're considering it. You appeared the same night someone sent me my mother's pendant. That's not proof of anything. No, Minyi agreed quietly. It's not. The tension had changed again, subtly, dangerously. Naomi hated it, not because she feared him. Because part of her understood exactly why he was suspicious. Too many coincidences, too many secrets. Then suddenly one guard burst back into the room. Boss. Minyi didn't look away from Naomi. What? We found a body downstairs. Everyone went still. Body? Naomi asked. The guard hesitated, then looked directly at her. Black male, mid-50s. Naomi's stomach dropped instantly. No, he had this in his pocket, the guard added, holding up a worn leather wallet. Naomi snatched it immediately. Her hands finally shook for the first time all night because she recognized it. Marcus, she whispered. Minyi watched her carefully. Who is he? Naomi's throat tightened painfully. Foster father. The room fell silent again. He lived in Busan, she said quietly. He raised me after my mother died. Minyi noticed something shift in her face then, not fear, grief, real grief. One of the guards spoke carefully. There's more. Looked up sharply. He wasn't killed recently. Guard's expression darkened. Based on decomposition, he died weeks ago. Froze. That's impossible. Deep down she already knew it wasn't, because Marcus had stopped answering her calls nearly a month ago, and suddenly all the unanswered messages felt horrifying. Minyi stepped closer slowly. You think the man from the hospital killed him? Laughed bitterly once. No, her eyes lifted toward him. I think the man from the hospital wants us both alive. Why? Naomi's voice lowered. Because dead people don't suffer long enough. The words lingered heavily between them. Then Yuna tugged lightly on Naomi's sleeve. Miss, Naomi looked down immediately. The little girl pointed weakly toward the mirror. The blood message had started dripping downward slowly, revealing another sentence underneath, 3 words. Minyi read them first. And for the first time since Naomi met him, she saw genuine fear enter his eyes. He remembers everything. Nobody spoke. Rain tapped softly against the broken window while the blood continued sliding slowly down the mirror. He remembers everything. Minyi stared at the words like they had reached inside his chest and ripped something open. Naomi saw it happen in real time, the control, the calm cracking. Boss, one guard asked carefully. Minyi didn't answer. His breathing had changed again, shallower now, uneven. Naomi stepped closer cautiously. Minyi. Then suddenly he grabbed the edge of the sink hard enough to crack the marble. The sound made Yuna jump. Naomi immediately moved the child behind her. Everybody out, Minyi said quietly. No one moved this time, because his voice sounded wrong, not angry, unstable. The guards exchanged nervous looks. Boss, out. The roar shook the room violently. Yuna started crying instantly. The guards obeyed immediately, rushing the child outside while Naomi stayed where she was. The second the door slammed shut, Minyi staggered slightly. Naomi caught his arm before he could pull away. His skin was ice cold. Talk to me. Don't touch me right now. Too late. His eyes snapped toward hers, dark, wild, not the controlled predator she met at the hospital. This looked like a man losing a war inside his own head. Naomi lowered her voice carefully. What does the message mean? Minyi laughed once, broken. You know what memory loss feels like? Naomi frowned slightly. No. It feels like drowning quietly. Finally looked at her fully. There are years of my life I can't remember. The confession hit harder than she expected. What? My mother disappeared, his jaw tight. And 3 months later I woke up in a hospital unable to remember anything from that night. Naomi's pulse sharpened. You never told anyone, my father knows. Hunted everyone involved. Minyi's expression darkened. Most of them ended up dead. Slowly understood. The pendant. The message. The attacks, someone wasn't trying to kill him immediately. Someone wanted his memories back first, and that terrified Minyi more than bullets. What happened that night? She asked softly. I don't know. But you suspect something. Silence. Then quietly, I think I watched my mother die. The words landed like a knife between them. Naomi saw the pain instantly, not fresh pain, old pain, buried pain, the kind that changes a person permanently. She touched his hand carefully this time, gentler. You were a child. I was supposed to protect her. You were a child. His eyes closed briefly. For the first time since meeting him, Kang Minyi looked tired instead of dangerous. Then suddenly, a memory hit him, violent, sharp. He stumbled backward instantly, breathing hard. Naomi grabbed him before he fell. Minyi, his pupils unfocused, rain, fire, screaming. A woman in white gloves kneeling in blood. Minyi's entire body tensed violently. I remember, he whispered. Naomi held him tighter instinctively. What do you remember? His voice shook slightly. There was a man, Flash, his mother pushing him behind her, gunfire. A necklace breaking. Minyi suddenly looked directly at Naomi and froze because for half a second the woman in his memory had Naomi's eyes. He pulled away instantly. What? Minyi stared at her silently, then whispered, You were there. Naomi blinked. What? I saw you. That's impossible. You were standing behind my mother. Naomi's heartbeat stopped. No, she was protecting you. Room spun slightly around her. She repeated softer this time, because suddenly something terrible moved inside her own memory too. A woman's voice, warm hands, white gloves, run, Naomi. The image hit so hard she grabbed the counter. Minyi noticed immediately. You remember something too? Naomi backed away from him slowly. Mother worked at that clinic. No, Minyi interrupted quietly. Your mother worked for mine. Exploded between them. Then the door burst open again. Chairman Chen entered fast with armed guards behind him. The second he saw Naomi and Minyi's expressions, his face darkened. What happened? Minyi looked at his father slowly, then held up the pendant. Diho froze instantly. Real fear crossed the old Mafia boss's face, a terrifying thing to witness. You know this pendant, Naomi said carefully. Diho's voice came out rougher than before. Where did you get that? Someone sent it to him. The chairman's eyes immediately moved toward the bloody mirror. Then everything changed. The old man looked suddenly older, not weaker, just haunted. Minyi stepped forward despite the pain. You lied to me. Diho's jaw tightened. There are things you don't understand. Then explain them. Silence, heavy silence. Finally, the chairman spoke quietly. Your mother was never supposed to die. Felt chills crawl down her spine. Minyi's eyes darkened dangerously. What does that mean? Diho looked toward Naomi briefly before answering. 15 years ago. Her mother tried to leave the organization. What? She wanted to disappear with 2 children. The room went still. 2 children. Minyi slowly turned toward Naomi. No one breathed. Diho continued heavily. There was an attack before they escaped. A fire, gunmen everywhere. His eyes lowered slightly. Afterward, your mother vanished. You lost your memories, and Naomi disappeared. Felt sick. You were reported dead, Diho said quietly. Minyi stared at Naomi like the world itself had tilted sideways. Then softly, you really were there. Naomi's knees nearly gave out. Fragments kept flashing now. Fire, smoke. A woman pushing them both through a hidden doorway. Let them separate you. The memory slammed into her chest so hard tears filled her eyes unexpectedly. Minyi saw them immediately. And somehow that affected him more than everything else tonight. Because Naomi never cried, not once, until now. What was my mother to her? Naomi whispered. Chairman Chen hesitated. Then answered the question that changed everything. They were sisters. Silence afterward felt endless. Naomi stared blankly. Minyi looked just as shocked. Cousins, all these years, the attacks, the pendant, the messages. Someone had dragged buried ghosts back into the light on purpose. Then suddenly the building lights died again. Every guard reached for weapons instantly. A slow clap echoed from the hallway outside. One clap, then another. Minyi's entire expression turned lethal because he recognized that sound. A man stepped into the doorway smiling, tall, elegant black suit, silver lighter spinning between his fingers, and eyes colder than winter. Good, the stranger said softly. Now everybody finally remembers. Naomi's blood froze. Minyi's voice became deadly quiet. Lee Sungmin, the man smiled wider. You really did survive death beautifully. The guards raised guns immediately. Sungmin laughed lightly. Relax, if I wanted him dead, he would have stayed dead. Chen looked murderous. You betrayed us. No, Sungmin replied calmly. I corrected history. Minyi stepped forward slowly despite Naomi grabbing his sleeve instinctively. You murdered my mother. Sungmin's smile disappeared. No, his eyes shifted toward Naomi. She's alive. Stopped. Naomi actually felt her heart skip. Minyi looked ready to kill him on the spot. You're lying. She's been alive for 15 years, Sungmin continued quietly. Hiding because your father failed to protect her. Jin lunged forward violently, but guards restrained him instantly. You traitorous dog. You should thank me, Sungmin interrupted coldly. I'm the reason she survived. Minyi's breathing turned dangerous again. Where is she? Sungmin smiled faintly. She only agreed to come back for one reason. His eyes shifted toward Naomi. She wanted to see the girl she saved. Felt tears burn her eyes again before she could stop them. All her life questions, loss, running, and now suddenly hope, real hope. Then Sungmin's expression darkened slightly. But there's a problem. Minyi stepped closer. What problem? Sungmin looked directly at him. She's dying. Crushed the room, rain hammered against the windows harder than ever now. Naomi looked at Minyi, Minyi looked at her. And in that moment, everything between them changed completely. No longer strangers, no longer coincidence. Two broken survivors tied together long before either of them understood why. Then quietly, almost painfully softly, Minyi reached for Naomi's hand again. This time she held on first, and neither of them let go.